I met Claire on an ordinary Tuesday, though nothing about that day feels ordinary anymore when I look back. We worked in the same building, passing each other countless times in the lobby, but it wasn't until fate seated us side by side in the cafe downstairs that I really saw her. She was stunning, long auburn hair that fell in loose waves, eyes that carried a softness even when she tried to look serious, and a smile that could melt ice. She noticed me staring and gave me a half-smile that made my stomach flutter. "You're here every morning too, aren't you?" she asked, her voice calm yet magnetic. I nodded, suddenly shy. Guilty. I guess we're both creatures of habit. That was all it took. We fell into conversation as though we had known each other for years. She told me she was married, her ring glinting under the cafe lights, yet when she spoke about her life, there was a sadness behind her words, like something vital was missing. Over the next few weeks, we kept accidentally meeting. Coffee breaks turned into long lunches. Friendly talks turned into lingering touches, her hand brushing mine as she reached for her cup, her knee grazing mine under the table. And each time, a spark ignited, burning hotter, daring us both to acknowledge it. One evening, as we walked out together, rain pouring down, she held her umbrella over me instead of herself. We stood too close, raindrops sliding off the fabric around us, creating a world where only the two of us existed. Her perfume, soft, floral, wrapped around me. My heart raced. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice shaking. She looked at me with eyes that searched deeper than friendship ever could. "You make me feel alive again," she confessed softly. Something shifted inside me in that moment. I knew this wasn't just friendship, and from the way she looked at me, I knew she felt it too. We didn't kiss that night, though every part of me wanted to. But when we parted, her hand lingered on mine, holding on as if neither of us wanted to let go. I went home restless, replaying the moment over and over. I knew she was married, knew this path was dangerous, but the pull between us was undeniable. What began as casual conversation was slowly transforming into something neither of us could escape. And deep inside, I knew Claire was going to change my life forever. Claire and I tried to keep things casual, but the truth was, we were orbiting closer and closer with every passing day. Coffee breaks weren't enough anymore. We started finding excuses, late-night texts about nothing and everything, long drives where she claimed she just needed to clear her head, invitations to help her shop for things she didn't really need. Every moment together only tightened the invisible thread between us. One Friday evening, she invited me to her place while her husband was away on a business trip. I hesitated, knowing what it meant to step into her home, but curiosity and desire won. The house was beautiful, large, modern, but cold in a way. It didn't feel lived in. It didn't feel loved. She poured us wine, and we sat on the couch with music playing softly in the background. Our conversation drifted from safe topics to confessions. She admitted she often felt invisible in her marriage, more like a shadow than a partner. I admitted I had always been drawn to women, though I had never fallen this deeply, this quickly. Her eyes glistened as she whispered, "I don't know what's happening to me, but when I'm with you, I remember who I am." The air between us grew thick, heavy with the weight of unsaid words. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into my touch, closing her eyes for a brief, trembling moment. "Claire," I whispered, my voice barely steady. She opened her eyes, and before I could say anything more, she kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, unsure, but the second our lips met, all restraint crumbled. The kiss deepened, urgent and hungry, like years of loneliness and longing were pouring out of her in one breath. Her hands cupped my face as mine slid around her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between us. The wine glasses sat forgotten on the table, the music fading into the background as the world shrank to just the two of us. When we finally broke apart, gasping, she whispered, "I shouldn't, but I can't stop." Neither could I. That night, passion took over. Every kiss, every touch was charged with the thrill of secrecy and the tenderness of long-denied desire. She was fire and softness all at once, hesitant in her guilt, yet fierce in her need. We moved together like we had been waiting for this moment all our lives. Later, tangled in sheets and breathless, she lay against me, her head resting on my chest. I stroked her hair, heart pounding, mind spinning with what this meant. "This changes everything," I murmured. She lifted her head, eyes full of both fear and relief. "I know. And I don't care." In that moment, I realized the truth. This wasn't just an affair. This was love in its most dangerous, intoxicating form. And neither of us was ready to let it go. The days after that night blurred into something surreal. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Claire's lips on mine, her body pressed against me, her whispered confessions filling the silence. It was intoxicating and terrifying. We had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Claire texted me constantly now. Little messages during the day thinking of you. "I miss your touch." Last night replaying in my mind. At first, it felt thrilling, like we were living in our own private universe. But reality was never far behind. She still went home to him. She still wore her wedding ring. She still played the role of the perfect wife. And I was the secret. Our stolen moments grew bolder. She would work late just to sneak away with me. I'd meet her in dimly lit hotel rooms where the world couldn't see us. There, she shed her guilt for a few precious hours and became mine completely. Her laughter was freer, her touch desperate, her body telling me all the truths her marriage denied. But every time she slipped back into her life, I felt the sting. The way her phone would buzz with his name while we were together. The way she'd glance at the clock, panic flashing in her eyes. The way she whispered, "I have to go," even as her hands clung to me like she never wanted to leave. One evening, as we lay tangled in each other at a quiet hotel, I asked, "Does he make you happy?" She was silent for a long time. Then she sighed. "He makes me stable. But you? You make me feel alive." Her honesty both thrilled and crushed me. I wanted all of her, not just the fragments she could give me between lies and excuses. But I bit my tongue, afraid to push her away. The secrecy began to weigh on us. At a dinner party one weekend, I was invited too, along with mutual friends. Watching her across the table, laughing at her husband's side, her hand resting casually on his arm, it tore something inside me. To everyone else, she was the picture of devotion. To me, she was a woman divided. When her eyes met mine briefly across the room, I saw it, the flicker of longing, the silent apology. And yet, I knew she would go home with him that night. I started questioning everything. Was I just a distraction? A fleeting rebellion against her carefully constructed life? Or was I something more, something worth breaking the world for? But then she would find me again, pressing me against a wall, kissing me like she'd die without me. And in those moments, I believed her when she whispered, "You're the one I can't let go." I was already too deep to turn back. She was both my addiction and my undoing. And though I knew the fire we were playing with could burn us alive, I couldn't stop fanning the flames. The thrill of secrecy only carried us so far before it began to eat away at us. Claire's eyes, once bright with daring, now often clouded with guilt. I saw it in the way she lingered at the door before leaving me, the way she hesitated when her phone buzzed with her husband's name. It was as if she was being torn in two, and I was holding half of her heart while the other half remained trapped in a life she no longer wanted. One evening, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her makeup was smudged, her hair tangled from running through the rain. Without a word, she collapsed into my arms. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered, trembling against me. My chest tightened. Doing what? Us. No, this life. The lies. Him. Everything. Her voice cracked as tears slid down her cheeks. I feel like I'm suffocating in my own marriage. But the thought of breaking it terrifies me. What will people say? What if I ruin everything? I held her face, forcing her to look at me. You won't ruin everything. You'll finally start living for yourself. Her lips brushed mine in a desperate kiss, as though clinging to the truth in my words. But when we pulled apart, fear still lingered in her eyes. The weight grew heavier in the weeks that followed. Her husband began to notice her distance, her distracted smiles, her late nights out. She told me once that he asked if she was unhappy, if there was someone else. She swore she denied it, but I saw the panic in her eyes when she told me the story. I hated him. Not for existing, but for holding a place in her life that should have been mine. And I hated myself for being the reason she felt torn. One night, after we made love, I asked her the question I had been afraid to say aloud. "Claire, do you love me?" She stared at me, eyes glistening. "More than I ever thought possible." "Then leave him." The words spilled out before I could stop them. "Be with me. Fully. No more hiding." Silence. Her hand slipped from mine, and she looked away. It's not that simple. But it was. At least to me. To love her and not have her completely felt like a wound that never healed. I wanted her laughter in the mornings, her warmth at night, her heart without conditions. The breaking point came when she canceled on me for the third time in a week. She texted, "He needs me tonight." "I'm sorry." I stared at the words, fury and heartbreak clashing inside me. I almost typed back, "And what about me? Don't I need you too?" But instead, I went silent, swallowing the ache. Because the truth was unavoidable. Unless she chose, we were both doomed to drown in this half-life of stolen moments and endless guilt. And deep down, I feared the choice would break us both. It was a Wednesday evening when everything shifted. Claire had promised to meet me after work, but hours passed with no sign of her. I sat in the cafe where we first met, nursing a coffee gone cold, watching the door with growing dread. When my phone finally buzzed, it wasn't her, it was silence. No message, no excuse. Just absence. The next morning, she showed up at my apartment. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. Before I could ask, she blurted out, "He knows." My heart stopped. Knows what? Not everything, she rushed, pacing the room. But he suspects. Last night, he asked me point blank if I was seeing someone. He said I've been different, distant. He said he doesn't recognize me anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. I lied. I told him no. But he doesn't believe me. I saw it in his face. I pulled her close, holding her as if I could shield her from the storm. "Claire, you can't keep living like this. It's killing you. It's killing us." She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled. I don't know what to do. The fear in her voice was raw, but underneath it, I heard something else, relief. The secret was too heavy, and part of her was tired of carrying it. In the days that followed, the tension only grew. Her husband called her constantly when she was with me. He checked her phone, questioned her late nights, studied her with suspicion. Claire began to unravel, her nerves fraying with every lie she told. One night, after another hurried kiss goodbye, she stopped at the door, her eyes wide with panic. He said if he finds out I'm hiding something, it'll be the end. I stepped toward her, my voice steady. "Maybe the end is what you need." Her lips parted, but she said nothing. She left with tears glistening on her cheeks, leaving me alone in the silence. That silence was broken days later when her husband confronted her. She told me about it over the phone, her voice shaking. He demanded answers. He said he's not blind, that he knows I'm lying to him. I couldn't say it. I told him I was just stressed, that it had nothing to do with anyone else. "And did he believe you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "No," she whispered. "But I think he's waiting. Watching. And when he finds proof," her voice cracked. "I don't know what he'll do." I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles ached. "Claire, you can't keep living in fear of him. You deserve love, not suspicion. Not control." There was a long pause, then her quiet words, "What if I leave?" My heart leapt. "Then you'll finally be free. And we can be together without hiding." The silence stretched again, heavy with everything unspoken. Then she whispered, "I'm scared." And I whispered back, "So am I. But love is worth the fear." Claire arrived at my apartment late that Friday night, her hair tangled from the wind, her eyes wide and restless. She didn't wait for me to speak. She simply walked in, closed the door behind her, and leaned against it as though holding it shut against the world outside. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. I froze, my heart caught between terror and hope. Do what? This life. This pretending. She pressed her palms against her temples, shaking her head. Every time I lie to him, I feel like I'm suffocating. And every time I leave you, I feel like I'm breaking in half. I can't keep living two lives. I moved toward her slowly, as if she might shatter if I rushed. Then don't, I said softly. Choose the life that feels real. Her eyes lifted to mine, glistening with tears. Real doesn't mean easy. No, I admitted, taking her hands in mine. But real means honest. Real means waking up next to someone you love, not someone you fear disappointing. Real means freedom, Claire. She sank onto the couch, pulling me down beside her. He begged me tonight. He said he'd do anything if I stayed. That he'd change, that we could fix this. She let out a broken laugh. But how do you fix something that was never whole? How do you stay in a marriage where you feel more like a ghost than a wife? Her words cracked open a truth she had been holding back, and I saw it, the moment her chains began to loosen. I cupped her face in my hands, my voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to answer him with words. Your choice is already written in your heart. You've chosen me every time you've run here, every time you've kissed me like the world was ending, every time you've whispered you love me. That's the truth, Claire. Her lips trembled. And if I lose everything? Then you'll have me, I said firmly. And I'll never let you feel like nothing again. For a long time, she was silent, her breathing uneven. Then, with a trembling exhale, she leaned in and kissed me. Slowly, tenderly, but with a weight that told me everything. It wasn't passion this time. It wasn't secrecy. It was a promise. When she pulled back, her voice was steady, certain. I'm leaving him. The words hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. My heart raced, not just with joy, but with fear of what came next. But in her eyes, I saw clarity. She had chosen. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close. We'll face it together. She nodded against my shoulder. Tomorrow, I'll tell him. I can't hide anymore. I won't. As we lay there that night, tangled in each other, sleep never came. But neither did regret. For the first time, it felt like we weren't living a lie. Tomorrow would bring chaos, heartbreak, maybe even anger. But it would also bring truth. And truth was the beginning of everything. The next evening, I sat in my apartment, pacing like a caged animal. Claire had left that morning with fire in her eyes, promising she would tell him the truth, that she couldn't stay in a marriage built on silence and pretense. She didn't want me there. This is something I have to do alone, she had whispered, kissing my lips as though it might be the last time. Every tick of the clock clawed at my nerves. I imagined her at the dinner table with him, her hands trembling on her lap, his eyes narrowing as he sensed the truth. I wanted to be brave for her, but my stomach knotted with fear. What if he lashed out? What if he convinced her to stay? What if love wasn't enough? Hours later, my phone finally buzzed. A single text, I told him. I'll come over soon. When she arrived, she looked like she had walked through a storm. Her makeup was streaked, her hair messy, her eyes swollen from tears. She collapsed into my arms without a word, and I held her as though I could shield her from the world. It's done, she whispered hoarsely. I pulled back, searching her face. Tell me. She nodded slowly, her voice breaking as she began. I sat him down in the living room. He looked at me with that expectant look, like he already knew something was wrong. I told him I couldn't stay, that I wasn't happy, that I loved someone else. My breath caught. And? He broke, she said, her voice trembling. He begged. He shouted. He asked me if it was another man, and when I told him it was you, he went silent. Like the ground had been ripped out from under him. He kept saying, but I'm your husband. You can't just walk away for a woman. Her tears spilled again, hot against my neck. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I hurt him. I destroyed the life we built together, and I hated myself for it. But at the same time, for the first time, I told the truth. I didn't hide. I told him I loved you. Those words, so simple, yet so heavy, hung between us. What did he say? I asked gently. She sniffled. He told me I'd regret it. That you'd leave me eventually. That I was throwing away everything for a fantasy. She pulled back, looking into my eyes, desperate. But this isn't a fantasy, is it? Tell me this is real. I cupped her face, brushing away her tears with my thumb. This is the most real thing I've ever known. She exhaled shakily, her body sinking against mine. Then I don't care what I've lost. As long as I have you. We sat in silence after that, her head on my shoulder, the weight of her decision pressing on us both. The road ahead would be messy, painful, uncertain. But as I held her, I knew we had crossed a line we could never step back from. Claire had left her husband. And now she was mine. Morning light filtered through thin curtains, painting the room in soft gold. For the first time in months, maybe years, I woke up without the hollow dread that had been my midnight companion. Claire lay beside me, slow and steady breaths rising and falling, her hair a dark halo on the pillow. I reached for her and she turned, smiled that sleepy smile that still made my heart stutter, and curled closer until our bodies fit the way they had been meant to. We moved together like two pieces that finally stopped pretending to be strangers. There was an intimacy to the ordinary, the way our hands found each other across the kitchen counter, the quiet kisses over steaming coffee, the gentle pressure of her palm on the small of my back as we walked down the street. The first weeks were a blur of repairing and building. We laughed at the small things, Claire's habit of burning toast, my terrible aim with a hammer, and comforted each other through the large ones. Calls from angry acquaintances, the logistics of untangling a life, the nights when doubt crept in and whispered terrible what-ifs. People noticed. Some looked away, some whispered. Friends picked sides, family questioned choices. There were mornings when the world felt like a gallery of accusations, and other days when it was simply ours, warm and private. We learned to hold our love like something fragile and fierce at the same time, treating it with reverence, protecting it from outside noise, and not being afraid to take up space together. Our passion was slower now, not because it cooled, but because it deepened. There were nights when we tumbled into bed with the reckless hunger of stolen lovers, and there were long afternoons when we lay tangled like vines, trading secrets and laughter, rediscovering the shy corners of each other. Sex became more than escape. It was language, soft moans, and whispered names that affirmed we had chosen one another again and again. The sensuality of it didn't shock me anymore. It soothed me. Her touch was a map that led me back to myself. We found a small apartment with flaking paint and crooked floors, and painted it together in colors that made us both breathe easier. We planted herbs on the sill, learned each other's playlists, quarreled over where to hang a mirror, and then surrendered with a kiss. Claire cooked, I cleaned. Sometimes we swapped roles and giggled at how unskilled we each were before laughing until we both had tears in our eyes. Ordinary life, once terrifying in its normalcy, became a sanctuary. There were hard days, inevitably papers to sign, past lives to close, apologies to be made or refused. But we navigated them as a team. When Claire received a terse message from her ex, she showed me and let me hold her while she shook. When the gossip reached my workplace, she walked into my office without hesitation, took my hand in front of everyone, and refused to let shame have us.